Welcome back to Prison Professors. This is phase 2 of our series with Dan Bowman, a successful entrepreneur. If you haven't watched the first episode in our 3-part program that's on career development, please make sure that you do so. I will provide a link in the show notes. But in the first episode, we heard from Dan telling us about a really exciting business opportunity that anybody can pursue in really earning a living in a business related to real estate. And I think that if we all invest in ourselves, we put ourselves in a better position to succeed. We're going to hear from Dan about how he did it now in the second phase of this interview. So Dan, why don't you tell us about this time you told us that you got laid off in your company and you became an entrepreneur, you started looking. Why don't you walk us through some of your first transactions?
Yeah, that would be perfect. So I knew that I wasn't equipped for anything too crazy, but I had a cell phone and a laptop. So I thought, okay, I have internet connection. What can I do here? And I'm going to breeze over a lot of these details just for the sake of time. But I discovered this kind of overage strategy, and I thought this is perfect. It takes almost no overhead. I can just start talking to people. I realized that I needed some legal docs and things in order to get this done. So I actually did contact an attorney to help me with that. You guys won't have to do that. I provide that in the course, luckily. But point is, I got some of the basics taken care of so I could actually get started with this. And honestly, I just jumped in. In my opinion, the best way to learn is to do. And I didn't want to waste a ton of time. And honestly, just from necessity, I couldn't waste time. I needed money. I wasn't getting a paycheck anymore. I had literally just bought a house. So it's like, I need to get going with this.
Let me pause right there and just drill down on some of those details, because you've given us quite a bit, and sometimes it's good for me to break those segments down.
That's perfect.
And it makes a lot of sense that you say you have a laptop and a computer, but you've also got this other element working almost against you, and that's time. Because we all need to eat. We all need to buy fuel. We all need to have enough money to get through the day. So I want you, if you are in jail or prison, or if you're on supervised release, to begin with a realistic budget of understanding, I've got to have some cash in the bank that will sustain me until this business starts to kick off an income. And you said you had a laptop and a computer, you had a house payment, so you had some overhead. What do you think your overhead was at that time when you made that thing? How much was it costing you to live a month?
That's a good question. So with the house and the cars and things, I want to say it was like $3,000 a month was my total. Yeah. So
think that through on your own life, right? This is why we want to invest in developing math skills and kind of figuring things out. So it costs you $3,000 a month, which means if it's going to take me 90 days to really master this and become good at it before I start making money, I'd better figure out a way to have how much money in the bank when I'm going to start this. It sounds like about $9,000, which to some people might be insurmountable. But what I would argue to you is that if you really invest in building a network and you create a plan and you can show what you can do, you should be able to go to 5 people, 10 people and say, look, invest in me $1,000 and I'm going to become self-sustaining. And I've done that my whole journey. I've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, even when I was in prison, by simply learning how to tell my story, help people understand this is what I am going to do, and this is how I am going to be successful. You can do the same thing. Just listen to what Dan said. You needed a laptop and a computer. You need maybe 3 months of living expenses and run room. And then you need to apply yourself well. And hopefully you hit it out of the park in the first 30 days, right? You might need to buy his course. You might need to do other things. So think these things through, and then you have a more viable plan. And the more viable your plan, the easier it's going to be for you to find resources that you can tap to not only pay for the course, that's an investment in yourself, but sustain you until you get there. So you had $3,000 in monthly expenses, and how much time did it take for you to turn the page where you said, okay, I've learned the process and now I'm in the game?
Yeah, and that's a good question, because you got to keep in mind with this, you are dealing with courts who need to release the funds to you, which you said 90 days, and that's actually perfect. Usually from the time you get your first client, it'll be about 90 days before you see that paycheck come in your mailbox. So yeah, within that first month, I'm being totally honest here. Within that first month, I think I had like five or so clients. Within the first two, it was over 10 clients, which was pretty quick. I mean, I had found a really good market, some good states to work. But that is actually quite realistic, honestly. If you can reach out to them, find them, talk to them, then yeah. So, and then from there, yeah, it was probably about 90 days, maybe just slightly longer for some of them to have those funds released to
So
me.
before we get into that part, there's another key takeaway that we just learned from Dan. He had to find clients, he had to talk to them, and he had to persuade them to engage him in a business, to do for them what they could not do for themselves, or what they did not know how to do for themselves. And in all reality, and I don't know this business, but I'm going to ask you, Dan, in all reality, if they had invested their own time, they could have learned what you learned and did it themselves. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's very accurate.
So what's really important for you to understand if you're going through this course is there's always enormous value that comes from intellectual property. If you know something, then you can help somebody else get something that they didn't even know they had coming to them. These are people that had money due them, but they didn't know it existed, nor did they know how they would get it. So what does it take to convert those people from an idea into a paying customer? It takes strong communication skills. You've got to have the ability to reach them. You've got to have the ability to communicate with them, to convince them. And nobody is that you're saying, hey, here's the opportunity. Here's a way for me to get you potentially $10,000. Would you like me to help you get you $10,000? What is it going to cost me is the first question. You're going to say absolutely nothing. If I don't get you anything, it doesn't cost you anything. If I get you something, is that effectively the business model?
That is totally accurate, yes.
So how hard is it going to be for you to sign up customers who don't know they have money coming, but you can help them get it? The question that I have for you, if you're a participant in this, how hard are you willing to work on yourself so that you can make this value proposition to the marketplace? If you can, it doesn't matter if you have tattoos on your face. It doesn't matter if you used to be a gang leader. All that matters is whether you have an insane work ethic and whether you have the communication skills necessary to prosper and succeed. And if you don't, well, then are you willing to work to develop those skills? Because Dan can teach you. So I think that we're kind of getting closer to what you do. You teach people how to seize opportunities that they don't know exist. How are you finding these people, Dan?
So it definitely depends on the county, city, state, but a lot of times there are literally lists posted on government websites even where you can look for that list. They're usually not terribly hard to find. And then from that, you're able to extract the information you need to then find the individuals, which is usually the previous homeowner who lost the house in the first place. You're able to find them through the information they give on these government sites. That's probably the most basic way. There's other methods too. But we teach you this in the course, by the way. We'll teach you skip tracing methods, for them to how to find that person's, their phone number, their address, whatever. But I did like what you just said, Michael, about, that don't worry about having tattoos on your face or anything like that. I don't know too many people besides actually myself who even put their own image on their own, for example, website. If you decide to put together a website, months down the road, you don't have to do that to start. But these people are never going to see you. You're going to talk to them on the phone. I have never even Zoomed a client ever. It's just phone or text or email.
That reminds me of a funny cartoon from the New Yorker magazine. I used to see it when I was in prison. And remember, I went to prison before there was an internet. So when I got out, I had to learn everything: how to send an email, how to create a video. And I've built businesses that have generated millions of dollars just because I was willing to work. All the lessons that I learned in prison have helped me build businesses when I came home. That's what you could be thinking about as well. But when we speak about this, I remember an article, a cartoon in the New Yorker magazine, and it had a picture of two dogs sitting at a bar. And one was a dog dressed in a suit, as I recall, and it had something, and he was building his website, and he was looking at the other dog. He said, on the internet, you could be anything you want to be, right? When you can build your profile on the internet to make yourself look like a sophisticated, huge corporate Fortune 500 company, because it's just a web page, right? And if you learn how to use words into sentences into paragraphs, put some nice pictures on there, right, you can make yourself look as a really credible resource. That's why I encourage you, invest time today to develop strong writing skills, strong speaking skills, because once you get that person on the phone, you've got to be able to articulate the value proposition like we're hearing Dan do, right? As a professional, you've got to give confidence to the people that you can really deliver on what you're offering them. If you don't know how to do it, you can't do it. That's why you need a course like Dan. And Dan, you said, you said that it was relatively easy, but how many hours would you say that you invested of your personal time to really learn this space and become an expert, the best in the world at what you do? How much time do you think you've invested in creating this system?
That's an interesting question. I feel like it's almost like a two-parter, because I've been doing this for years now, and I feel like I do get better and better with every case that I do, to be totally fair. So you're always learning, but it took me a couple of months to really narrow down my ability, like what I was going to say, my own script. When I spoke with people, it took me about that same amount of time to be able to navigate attorneys and how to talk to them and how to work with courts. So I've got whole video. Again, I don't mean to keep drawing this to the course, but
I'm going to take it to the course.
Yeah, I got whole videos where I talk about this, because it's kind of a much longer conversation, and this is going to save you literally months of time, because I'm going to feed you all these answers basically that it took me to kind of figure out on my own. It'll save you a lot of time basically. So, well, that's what I wanted to point out, because I am one of the prospects that you're reaching, right? I was a guy who was in prison, and I'm a guy who's built businesses using nothing more than communication skills, reading, writing, learning, figuring out intellectual property. But I can tell you, I've spent millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars, to learn all of these techniques. If I could have hired somebody that had done it before me and taught me how to do it, it would have been worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to me if I could have figured out how to do it. You have to make a decision whether you want to reinvent the wheel or you want to get in the game faster by finding a subject matter expert, hiring that subject matter expert to help you get off the ground and get up to speed so that you can start building your own career. You've got to be as willing to work as hard as you can on yourself as Dan was willing to work on himself, and just make the choice. You could invest 1,000 hours if you want to try and master the skill, but you could also say, let me invest in this course, hire a master, and use that skill to accelerate my earning capacity. Is that a fair assessment of what you offer? It's perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's all about saving time, and that's what we've covered. In the first video, we spoke about how easily you could use this skill to develop yourself. In the second video, we just spoke about what Dan does. Now, in the third video, we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of this course. And what is the name of the course again?
It's called Overage Mastery.
And people can find that course in what ways?
You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, or talk to me directly through the Gmail account, which is overagemastery1@gmail.com.
And what we're going to do is we're going to write some show notes that accompany these videos. And in those show notes, we will have links to all of Dan's area. I'm going to then send the written lesson plan to Dan to approve, just to make sure I haven't misrepresented anything that he told me. This is not an overnight get rich quick scheme. This is not some type of promise that you could do something more. What it is it's showing you the importance of investing in yourself. I never asked anybody to do anything that I didn't do. I was in prison for 26 years, and anything that I did, anybody else could do. The reality that we're expressing is just saying, learn how and why you should invest in yourself today so that you can become a person that's filled with promise rather than excuses of why you can't get off the ground. There are far too many people in jail and prison today that end up homeless or end up back reverting to criminal behavior that leads them back to prison, or unemployed or underemployed. We want to try and change that dynamic. That's what we do at Prison Professors, and it's why I'm so grateful for an opportunity to introduce you to community leaders like Dan Bowman, a real entrepreneur who's built a multi-million-dollar business, helping people find money that they didn't know they had. So stick with us in the next interview, and you will get details on his course. Thanks so much for being a part of our program.